Recently in Ghost Simulator, we got a whole new classified, which was kind of interesting because it was the first new classified we've had in over a year. And with the classified being added, we were exposed to a new, very high stat gem crate classified that we haven't had in the past in Ghost Simulator. And since this was added, a whole lot of stuff have developed, causing a lot of gem people to be able to basically mass unbox as many as they want, with some players having over 20 of the newest classifieds in the first few weeks of it being out. And because of that, I've been decided to go ahead and make this video to go ahead and cover how Rebirths have affected this. This new system might be balanced in the future, and also to cover some of the myths and ideas about this rebirthing and grinding gems that players are probably going to be asking about in this update. Now, the first thing I will go ahead and talk about is the new classified itself. Since it is rather new and some players may not know exactly where it comes from, the new classified is found in the Remnant Zone and is located in the least expensive crate in the shop here. The crate costs a total of 550,000 per crate, and you'll need to unbox around 100,000 if you want to get this yourself without any lucky boost, which can be actually reduced down to around 12 to 16,000 if you have all the lucky boosts. But in essence, it will still be pretty hard for most people to get, especially since you need around 10 billion gems on average to be able to get it. Now, if you look at the stats of this pet, you can kind of see where the problem starts with having a pet this good. For reference, the last gem crate classified that people had access to is actually Cossaquing, which was pretty easily to mass unbox if you were at all a decent player. Even myself, with my little time spent compared to some of the more endgame people, have been able to pretty easily get my hands on Cossaquings at the point where I was able to pretty much freely give them away at some points whenever people wanted them or there was a special event in my Discord server. But with this new crate classified, it has over 2 times the stats, at least in terms of vacuum rate boost, which isn't really a useful one. You more want to be looking at the Ecto Token boost. But it has quite a bit more stats than Cossaquing, which ends up being quite game-breaking when people can pretty much just as easily mass unbox Sandstorm as they can Cossaquing because of how many gems people are able to get. And another thing to mention is that the fact it has so much stats, it actually has more than stuff like Status Phase, Spirit Fly, and Euphoria, which most people were expecting Sandstorm to have less stats than that. Most people expecting it to be around the 800 range between Cloud Wave and the Dev Classifieds. With that being said, though, this wasn't the main reason why having a gem crate classified was broken. That was actually due to how rebirths are handled in Ghost Simulator and how they've allowed players to basically break how many gems they get. Now, the reason why I said these new classifieds aren't the reason why it's broken is because of how rebirths work in Ghost Simulator. Most people that play this game aren't able to even think about getting one of these new classifieds, and usually can't even get a Cossaquing, let alone the newest Sandstorm. And because of that, it's really not the new dev stats that are to be faulted. It's actually how the rebirths work in Ghost Simulator. Now, rebirths in Ghost Simulator actually work in a great way. They allow players to have an infinite endgame and allow them to improve their stats quite a bit. But there is one flaw with how the system works, and that's with how people can go ahead and get pretty much an infinite amount of these without any scaling problems. In most other games that have rebirths, there's usually some sort of scale that requires you to do more work for each rebirth. I'd like to go ahead and emphasize here that what I'm trying to say is games need to require players to do more progress to obtain the same amount or less work. So when players start out, they should be able to get a lot of progress pretty quickly, and then as they play more, they should require more and more work to get the same amount of progress, so they have a little bit of progression, and the game increases in difficulty as they continue playing. In that the current rebirth system in Ghost Simulator, it's a flat amount of time to go ahead and do each rebirth, and each rebirth goes ahead and stacks on more and more stats. So in effect, it's basically being a reverse of what games need to have in their economy by giving players that play more of an advantage for playing the same amount of time than players that are just playing for the first time. Also is the best way for it to work in Ghost Simulator. But one of the problems that arises because of this is because the game does go ahead and limits your rebirth at that one time. It makes it so that each rebirth is worth the same amount. And so for your first rebirth or your second rebirth, they're all going to be going ahead and costing you the same amount of time to go ahead and get. And since they all add a certain amount after a certain point, once you get all the infinite ones, all the ones that are left to get, the ones like Tycoons, Pet Stats, Divines even, all they do is add to the amount of currencies you get, which directly correlates to how many gems you can grind in Ghost Simulator. And because of that, Rebirths are pretty much just useful for grinding more gems. And as you saw, I opened up a stat sheet, which compares actually how the best two ways to go ahead and improve your gem boost is, using either Tycoons or Pet Evos from each Rebirth. This starts out pretty linear, the same way that you can go ahead and get Rebirths, which most people see as kind of fine, because as you get more and more of these Rebirths, it starts to actually add less and less. For instance, to go ahead and double your stats for the first time by using Tycoons, you need to get around 3 Rebirths to go ahead and just double the amount of currencies that you can get. And then to double it again, you actually need to go ahead and get a total of 6 more Rebirths. And so it starts off pretty balanced in a way, requiring you to go ahead and get 3 Rebirths to double your currency the first time, and then 6 more to go ahead and double your currency for a second time, which seems to be pretty balanced since it does require so much Rebirths to begin with, and requiring you to go ahead and get diminishing returns, because the first time you do get a total of 30% increased stats, but on the second time you actually get less than that because you already have the 1.3, so the 30% additional is actually more like 25% due to already having a 1.3 times the multiplier. But the problem actually occurs around the 17 Rebirth mark, where instead of actually just adding an additional 0.3, which already, in a sense, is still broken despite me just saying it wasn't, because of how all that matters in Ghost Simulator with how the crates are set up is actually having a +1 addition to how many gems you get. You don't need a ×2 to be as game breaking, just because the crates do stay at the same cost. So instead of that, you actually have to go ahead and nerf the total amount you're getting rather than just nerfing the total percentage increase. Basically what I'm trying to say is just because you're increasing your total amount by a lesser amount, 1.3 times down to 1.2 times down to 1.1 times, that doesn't really matter. The structure it is with the 0.3 plus each time is actually good enough for Ghost Simulator to be kind of game breaking in some sense. But as I was saying, once you get to the 17 point, it actually becomes kind of game breaking, because once you hit 17 Ectotoken Tycoons, it actually becomes worthwhile for you to spec into Pet Evos, because they multiply each Tycoon by the amount of stats your pets increase by. You end up actually getting more than that 30% increase from just a pet from a Tycoon. So rather than it being a constant flat increase for the flat amount of time that you have to spend on each Rebirth, every increased Rebirth ends up actually adding a little percentage more than a 0.3. So you start off with a 0.305 increase, then you get a 0.315 increase, and what ends up happening is later on, for each Rebirth, you end up getting an insane amount of increase to how much stats you get. And once you get even up to just like 50 or so Rebirths, down here, this is 66 Rebirths on these, you end up getting almost a whole 1 times increase to the amount of stats you can get, which is just super game breaking for endgame for people who have hundreds of Rebirths, because for every single Rebirth they're getting, they're pretty much getting an additional 200% currency or gems from this. Now, how this could be balanced is to actually go ahead and remove either Evo or Tycoons, probably Evo since it's less useful to begin with. But a better way to go ahead and balance that, at least in my opinion, that would be fair instead of just removing people's Rebirths somehow, would be to go ahead and make Evos additive instead of multiplicative with Tycoons. So rather than being a 1.3 times multiplier times a 1.05 times multiplier, they could just be additive instead, which would be kind of difficult to code, I think, but would go ahead and balance it to not give so many Rebirths such a huge advantage over other people. Now, another way that they could actually go ahead, or another problem in Ghost Simulator that they might go ahead and fix to solve this problem, is actually how people unbox in the first place. If you've watched any of my classified unboxing videos, you may notice that I use an auto clicker to unbox, which is currently the most common way that people actually unbox for classifieds in Ghost Simulator, because it is allowed. But the problem with this is that it is actually pretty game breaking, allowing you to go through thousands of crates in just a few minutes pretty easily. And it's kind of a cheesy method and kind of breaks the whole point of classifieds taking a while to unbox. And what they could do instead of changing how much currency you get is actually increase the amount of cost for crates to unbox if you want to unbox multiple of them, and then remove the ability for people to go ahead and unbox, let's say, with an auto clicker anyways, so that people can go ahead, reduce the amount of boxes being open, but you can go ahead and increase the amount of boxes you open at a time by using like more currency. For instance, if you have a lot of gems and you want to open quickly, instead of being limited to just one crate every time you unbox a crate, instead of that, you could actually pay like, I don't know, 2 times the cost or something and open like 10 at a time, and infinitely scale that up somehow, so that people can pay more gems to unbox more at a time. They're paying more per crate, but it's balanced out by the fact that they can spend less time unboxing. And I feel like that would be a feature that a lot of people would use. It'd help reduce the amount of classified over unboxing, because as it is right now with auto clickers and the crate being the same, it's really hard for new players to go ahead and get classifieds. But once people can get classifieds, they can usually unbox infinite amount at a time. So by having that little thing, people can go choose whether they want to save their gems and unbox less classifieds, or use a lot more gems and be able to unbox quicker. And I feel like that would also solve the problem of having too many gems to unbox with, rather than trying to change how endgame balancing works for gem collection in the first place. But yeah, those are just my thoughts. There is one more thing that I do want to say, and that is I would like to apologize for anyone who has heard me say that more Rebirths has diminishing returns, because I realized as I was doing the math for this video that that was not actually the case, and I've been kind of wrong on that in the past. But yeah, with that, I think that is all that I have in regards to this. I have spent 5 billion gems on trying for this classified, and I probably will spend another 5 billion at some point in a later stream. But for now, that is all I have planned for both this video and content we made. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do have any more questions in regards to gem grinding in Ghost Simulator, or how the new classified works, or anything like that, or you'd like me to discuss some other ways that Ghost Simulator can balance the game, because right now it is quite unbalanced, and it's kind of funny that this year they are planning on doing balance changes, and then they went ahead and released 2 back-to-back double drops weekends and an insane classified, despite them being balance changes. If you want to go hear balance changes, go ahead, let me know what you would like me to discuss balance changes on, and I might go ahead and make a video on that. Anyways, thanks you guys for watching. Hopefully this video isn't too factually incorrect. If you do notice anything that you would like me to apologize for, anything incorrect in this video or something that needs clarified, again, let me know in the comments. I will go ahead and probably remedy that there, or maybe make another video if there's too much stuff in here that is incorrect, and I'll see you guys in the future.